girlfriend's watching TV.
No, I don't hear anything.
Gotcha.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Foxhole Community Media Podcast. Today, I am joined by Duke Salt, Lurkus,
Hi.
Tiberius,
Hello.
and of course, I am Sir, myself. Got kind of an interesting bit of topics for you. Of course, we had the quite a bit to talk about, really. Tanks. We have the new pillboxes from the Devstream is up. We've got quite a bit to go through, don't you know? I think first, we had 0030 update, which the weathered expanse, where you got the new map. We all got to play a bit of that. What do you guys think about that? The new map?
I think
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of new options that the shallows open up. Kind of missing the bridge.
No, you just said weathered expanse.
Weathered expanse, bruh.
I apologize. I think I already talked about this.
He was like, that bridge.
I love weathered expanse. I think it's still my favorite map right now.
I really want to see all the other maps get the TLC that Weathered Expanse got. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Matt saying that he thought that the Weathered Expanse was not going to be as well received, but it turns out to be the best map.
Yeah, it was definitely better well received than Umbral, by far. I just just in terms of playability too. I mean, it had aspects from Upper Heartlands, which some people like. I mean, it's a hit or miss on whether or not you like that one, but I mean, it's the flat fields, as well as something along the lines of Callahan's Passage. I guess that snow feel out of it, and that's kind of great just to experience that in more than one spot.
It's also not only just the way how you can play it, how it is, how you just fight in it, but it's more of the atmosphere too. Because there's like a constant blizzard, like a quote unquote blizzard, because it's not really crazy, but there's constant snow. There's a fog effect. There's abandoned vehicles that you can find around. There's that little trench area. It kind of gives you that feeling that a war or a large battle has already happened there before the game has already started, way a long time ago.
Those walls too are just awesome.
Oh yeah.
They add so much, just the destroyed wall chunks, and even from a defensive standpoint, you can use them to, box in an area or build up your defenses against it, and suddenly they can't do anything. You can't throw a grenade over it or anything. So it's a pretty big. It's unique in that it's a primary map, visual feature. And that's something I don't think we've really seen that much of, something like that major in any of the other maps. I can't really think of anything, but...
Well, just in addition to that one thing that makes that map stand out, a lot of the different areas have separate visual identifiers. So you don't even have to see a road or a specific building, but just the hill or the spooky forest or the bushes and all that kind of stuff, or some of the blue bushes, the blue flowers and stuff on the ground outside of Crow's Nest. A lot of the areas feel very different to each other.
When they were trying to compare this to Upper Heartlands, really, and it's really not Upper Heartlands. It's very open. At the same time, it feels like there's something to it. You could just be walking down the road and there's stuff all around you. You got the foresty tree style. You've got just the snow, the atmosphere, and then you have this wall that you run across. But it's a much more different feel to that, and I think that also really lends to the strategy. It doesn't feel as open as Upper Heartlands does. Yet you can still go across the snow. You don't have to stick to the roads. It's even though it feels like you should. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like playing on that map, and I am looking forward to seeing the other maps get a little bit more TLC past that.
Oh, And about like what you said about like you feel like you need to stick to the roads. I think that like they added the trenches there, and I expected, well, not that like I really expected, but I expected at least some fighting to be going on around those trenches. And I mean, maybe a way they could like make it so people fight more in the trenches or in trenches is that they add more around the map.
Mm.
That may help if they want to add like a more like trench warfare-esque type deal with the map.
Definitely.
I think they might want to expand on that more fully later, but I've seen a little bit of combat going on in the trenches, just a handful here and there.
Are there trenches on that map?
Yeah, they're not very distinct, and they're kind of in the middle of the nowhere, but they are.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I haven't.
Well,
experienced
that's
them
probably it. I think a map, that feels like a frontline location would be kind of cool. You've got some type of distinct feel to a frontline situation that's nowhere near any towns. Maybe you have campsites or bases or military, outpost type of things. But something that better utilizes those trenches would be kind of neat in that respect. I think we're gonna jump forward, diving into probably the hottest topic, that we've had in months, just in general.
Victor's
Everyone loves
voice.
a good tank. Yeah, Victor's voice, Stalt's voice, just those voices. No, we're gonna jump straight into tanks and Foxhole. Man, we got to see the Colonial tank reveal, which was pretty big. I know it was very competitive, trying to get that tank reveal for your faction. Colonials did it, thanks in no small part to the neutrals that fought for us. But
Hey,
we got to see the tank, and we got to see their plans for the tank. We've got the critical points in the tank that'll be damaged, so you'll be able to track it or knock the turret out, stuff like that. The crew is going to be vulnerable. I want to see that kind of be expanded on depending on the armor of the tanks. But there's all kinds of stuff, different shell types.
yeah. Actually, one thing, something reminds me, like how you said, like how they said that the crew will be exposed if depending on like where you hit it and things like that. It reminds me of that scene from Fury, if you guys have ever seen it, or
Mhm.
if some of you haven't, but where the three Shermans are like attacking that one Tiger tank, and one of the commanders, he gets like his head blown off because he like one of the shells like bounces off like the ground or one of the tanks, and it hits him in the head. And so I thought that'd be like a pretty cool situation to happen in game as well. Just like your commander's like looking up, and then he just gets hit by a shell
He's just
because
gone.
he's like, yeah, pretty much.
That'd be cool, especially when you get hit by like howitzers and stuff. He's exposed, and with that hatch open, you have the exposure of probably the reloader and stuff like that. So that'd be kind of interesting. You're gonna have multi-crew vehicles too. That's gonna be kind of cool.
Yeah, I was really happy that they are kind of going all out with the implementation. Specifically saying they don't want it to be just like a half track with the turret. The getting multiple people with actual jobs that all contribute to the actual greater thing, right? And then you've also got the localized damage, all that kind of stuff. Seems pretty freaking awesome. I'm glad they're going all out.
Yeah, seeing it implemented right from the get-go. And I know it's not even close to being implemented. I mean, this is going to be, a month or two out, if not more. They're aiming for a release with this. So we've got some time to wait and some time to watch this grow. I am very much excited to see this get tested, though. I know they were talking about the testing of the tanks. They want to not open it up like completely public, but they're going to open it up to like people who have been helpful and stuff. So if you've been playing for a while, basically, which would be good because the whole idea is the tanks are a very, very, very main feature. It brings you closer to that finished feel, and I know they want to get the media team, the marketing firm that they're going to bring in. It's gonna open up, that more finished, refined feeling of the game, and it's going to bring in more players. Quite frankly, I
It's going to
want
solve
to
a
see.
lot of problems that people have been having so far with balance
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I feel,
really.
yeah, I like appreciate the direction they're going with the tanks, but I feel that if it's not properly balanced before it's implemented in the game, it could definitely be a deterrent for a lot of people. Because with the way that they've structured the armories and the vehicle factories, it's going to be a mad dash to get one of those completed. Either you mad dash the vehicle factory and you're able to get those tanks and you're able to build them through that difficult means, or you work on the defensive mechanisms, mainly your RPGs, your sticky bombs, all of those things. So it's going to be a kind of a gamble, is the way I'm like viewing this, and that could potentially be an issue because you could have people go entirely like we're going to just build it and get mortars in our vehicle factory, I mean our armories, and then turn around and just, oh well, we're going up against tanks now, this isn't good. And so I'm not sure how they're going to balance those two out.
Well, I think a way that they've mentioned in the past with like the tech trees, and I feel like a way to balance it out would be like not necessarily like both teams have like tanks at the same time, but maybe one does, but the other has weapons and equipment that can counter tanks because they chose to go that route instead of making tanks right away.
In,
So
in
maybe that would
addition
help out.
to, yeah, probably. But in addition to like just the huge headache it's going to be to get the tech to get tanks, right? The way that they're talking about like making tanks a lot bigger of a deal to make, not just to get access to, but to make compared to other vehicles and stuff, makes me think that there's going to be like you're going to have to make individual parts of a tank that you'd slap together, and each of those parts might have a difficult means of getting them. Like maybe you'd have to get tech parts and put them into a part, like the stabilizer or something like that, right? Whatever it is, because right now, once you get half tracks, it's not trivial. I mean, it is trivial actually to spam half tracks to get that rolling and to just pump out half tracks like crazy.
Mhm.
They're specifically talking about finding ways to like reduce the spam, so the tanks don't get spammed whenever they get accessed. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of arbitrarily restricting them. Like, oh, you can only have 5 tanks per team or something like that. That doesn't seem right because it seems like if a team has the ability to support more than 5 tanks, why not let them? Under all these other logistical restraints that you've put on them up until this point. So I'm interested to see how they go about acquiring tanks because that's going to be a big balancing thing. And they said they have some ideas for that. But I think what might hamper this tank is its lack of anti-infantry firepower because it's kind of a weak tank, a light tank and all, but
Mhm.
normally you'd use like a coaxial machine gun or a whole machine gun to keep infantry off of you and then use the main gun to take out hard points or other tanks. Since it just has the gun, it might be easier than you think for it to get swamped with infantry and maybe get sticky bombs thrown on it.
Maybe the medium tank is probably the one that's going to be more. It's going to be partly anti-infantry and
Mhm.
also anti-vehicle. While maybe the heavy tank will be mainly anti-vehicle
Well,
instead
and
of
Yeah,
here's
or
the thing:
maybe.
is
defenses.
along with that though is uh, what Tiberius is bringing up with the idea is if you don't go into tanks, for your strategy, how much of a disadvantage are you going to be? Because once you start getting those medium tanks and those heavy tanks, they're going to be very, just plain old boaty. You're going to have big guns, coaxial weaponry, multiple crew. How do you offset that without accurately or overly penalizing that effort? How many RPG rounds is it going to take down a heavy tank, or how many anti-tank turrets is it going to take? Is that going to be offset in some way? We've got the hatchet, the first light tank there, which it's got a 40 millimeter a gun on it, which is pretty light. It's got 360-degree rotation, somewhat fast tank speed overall, but it's going to be relatively easy to counter this early game, even if you haven't gone into tanks. If your team is just lacking the technology, you've got a chance. But if you don't go into tanks immediately as soon as you see it on the field, you're suddenly going to be spreading that disadvantage. Which really, if you look at any war, if you don't have tanks in the field and the enemy does, you're basically screwed in the first place. But as far as gameplay, how much of a leap is it going to be to counter that? That lack of forgetfulness. Do you have some way of taking out tanks long term? Is there going to be an anti-tank rifle? Is there going to be the field machine gun placement? Is that going to be able to be anti light or medium vehicle and so on? It'd be interesting to see.
I feel
how
like
they,
when the time
take care of
comes,
that.
when the time comes, like closer towards release for tanks, things like that will start appearing, like anti-tank rifles. Pretty sure the field machine gun, not that because I'm pretty sure for now it'll be mainly anti-infantry, but maybe there'll be a different clip type that's like AT rounds instead of just normal HMG rounds, things like that. Because right now, like they don't really have a reason to add those. Because I mean, yeah, there's half tracks, but we already have enough tools to counter them enough. So there's no real need to bring a anti-tank rifle in when there's not really anything you're gonna need it for, other than like a half track, which isn't really that much of a
Yeah,
problem.
pretty sure the Geneva Convention has things in place for using anti-tank rifles as anti-personnel weapons. So
That's paperwork. Who cares?
Sure,
yeah.
this doesn't take. We don't know that. I'm just kidding.
I mean,
But
I'm going to jump into one thing here. So we've got the devs were gracious enough to provide us with some cool stuff for the community. One of the things that we have for you is some concept art that has not been released to the community yet, and it's pretty good. It's really good. You basically get to see the tanks in their various damaged parts. As damage goes on, what they start to look like, and I'm really, really, really keen on seeing this. Look in game, especially, but just take a look at that stuff. You've got
Now I'm not familiar. I'm not sure if this has been discussed or not. I didn't hear anything about it. It might have been, but are the tanks for each faction going to look different? Is it going to be like physical characteristics? Okay, gotcha.
The
That was
characteristics
actually
might not
why.
be so different, but the models
Yeah.
definitely will be.
That was actually the reason why there was that whole one war, that one conquest war, where they were like, "Oh, the reward's going to be whoever's tank," because whoever won would get to see their tank first. Which, since the colonials won, right now we're seeing their light tank, and I think either close to release or after release is when they're going to reveal the warden light tank.
Yeah, they said it was going to be a while before, a few weeks at least before we see the warden tank. But it's kind of cool to see the direction that they're going with this. Even with the concept art, just seeing the different blown parts. You've got the engine compartment blown off. The turret off the body. Now I'm assuming some of that will make its way into replacing the existing components fields, those tank husks. But I am interested in seeing damage progress on a vehicle dynamically as it gets damaged. Hey, my right side's been hit a lot. Maybe the right side of your vehicle will look much more damaged than the left. I think it'd be such a huge thing to see that type of dynamic, part of it, and it would give so much to the feel of the game as well. But even just looking at this concept art, you've got the tank commander up top with the binoculars, which of course implies that you'll be able to use binocs sitting out the top. But just seeing the different damage states. Even in this view, you've got the guy sitting on the top while the tank is basically smoking, and you've got the gun already damaged, but it looks like it's operational until, well, the engine's been blown. But
Yeah. Also, ballistic. I was just looking at the chat really quick, and Duke said something about how the tank won't have like a machine gun on it to take care of infantry. But if you go to one of the slides where it shows the front facing, there's actually a little hole right next to the main gun, the main turret,
Yeah,
right
I
next to
think
the main
that's for
barrel.
the sight, but it could also be a machine gun very well. But yeah, either way, I guess.
oh yeah, that is kind of a good point. Let's see, it looks like there's a turret light, and then yeah, that hole. Who knows? That could be a gun port. It seems like a really silly placement considering how tiny this tank is.
There wouldn't be much
Yeah.
room inside the turret. There's
Yeah,
already
it's,
room for 2 people apparently. So
yeah. I mean, you've got this tank. If I remember right, is a fraction of the size of like a heavy tank or a big tank. It's what was it, a 50 something ton or 30-ton tank, metric ton, remind you. But it is a really small tank. It's only 5,500 kilograms, which compared to like an M3 Stuart is like 3 times that weight, and just overall. So this is a really, really small tank to start off with. But you do see the that hole, and that is a good point. So maybe the gunner can pull double duty. Maybe he goes, okay, I don't need to shoot for a while. I'm gonna stick my head out. But there is no reloader in this case, unless the commander's doing the reloading, which is kind of silly. But there is no reloader in this crew configuration, which is 3 people: the driver, the gunner, and the commander.
Maybe just saying like I'm pretty sure it wouldn't really work this way, but maybe the gunner can switch between the main gun and that's the machine gun that would go through that little hole, or the coaxial.
It could be. I mean, it could also break down to simply being just where the gunner gets to look.
Yeah, viewport.
Because there is no real viewport except for where the commander position is. Past that, so it's got to be a viewport of some sort, or even the on the side of the turret there. It looks like there's either a light or maybe a scope. So who knows what that hole is really for? It could just be an air hole. Who knows? We do know that this is the model. This is the model. What you see is what you get in this case. So
yeah, they won't be be lowering like the texture quality or like how many polygons are on it. It's gonna be exactly how it is right now.
Yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, it's pretty good. And of course we've got that concept art, which again, thank you very much to the devs for getting us that. It's been really nice. I know a lot of us have been hyping this up quite a bit. It's a relatively simple concept art, but holy crap, it actually sees the progression of the tank. Past that though, what else have we got? We've got the dev blog and also the dev branch to go on.
Yep.
We've got the sunken pillbox, which is probably one of the most important things. I don't know. I'm torn on what I think about this.
I think it's an interesting counter to the late game meta of artillery.
Yes,
because that is the meta, is artillery. Half tracks are nice, but they don't deal with defenses like artillery does.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is you have to get line of sight on these things in order to really hit them, or the damage doesn't really do a whole lot. Even artillery on it should do a little bit more than most things, considering that the sunken pillbox. I mean, if you just look at it, it doesn't have like the the concrete on top, which was typically used in war to counter, bombs and explosives. But it's just metal on the top, so it seems like it'd be still a little bit vulnerable to an artillery piece, but
With sulfur now, do you really want to waste that much arty shells when you could just send some poor sap to bait it out?
that's true, and that's exactly true. Is the tactics with that is going to have to be a little bit more teamworky as far as that goes, but the cost of everything is going to increase. Just being able to pump out arty shells is going to be a little bit harder with the sulfur. We did get to see the sunken pillbox take some people out on the dev branch, which has only been up for like 3 hours or 4 hours. But
I think it was like one of the first things that got done. They dropped down those refined materials, and then somebody was already dead.
yeah,
Like I don't even think it had been built yet, and somebody died by it.
So yeah, those things are vicious. I saw Casper get wrecked by one he didn't see. They're not like garrisons, even though they shoot like garrisons. Those things will wreck you so quickly.
they're like the cross between a machine gun and an automatic rifle. The rate of fire was insane. Now I don't know if that's like going to stick around, but holy crap, that thing was devastating. It did take a little bit of time to pop up and activate, so it is good to see that it does have some type of weakness.
I don't feel like it took long enough. I feel the way that it was perceived when they were talking about it in the stream was that it would take like 2 to 3 seconds to raise up, and then it would acquire the target and then start shooting. No, this like the second the gun port became available, it just started firing away.
That's kind of
It
true.
activates, really quick as well.
You're right. It did seem to kind of happen through the animation. I could be wrong. It could just be a really short animation, but maybe the animation does need to be a little bit longer. You figure it's a mechanical movement, going up and down. I doubt they, electrical motor at all these sunken pillboxes, but
I'm actually on the dev branch right now. I can test it out, see what it is.
yeah, report back. But yeah, no, it was a really devastating thing to see with that seemingly automatic fire, but it's kind of cool. Now the cost is 60 refined materials, right? I'm pretty sure that's what I wrote down, but I don't know if that's expensive enough for what it does, or it's a good balance. I don't know what you guys think about that. Comparing to like anti-tank turret,
Yeah, I would. I mean, as of recently, and like through the minimal time that I've been playing and coming back into the game, I haven't really noticed much in terms of anti-tank placements at all. Like, AT guns have been very at the wayside, and in terms of bunkers becoming available and fortress walls increasing in price, I think 60 is like a viable option, especially for putting up a quick defense that could cover a blanket area for just a short amount of time before you're able to get those walls up. I mean, because they're harder to spot and they deploy relatively quick. But other than that, you're going to be dropping, what is it? Almost 200 refined materials into a bunker, not to mention the subsequent walls that need to be around it and the manpower and resources necessary to get those there. I don't think
that's a good point, comparing it to a bunker, actually.
Will it replace the bunker? I don't think so. But
at that point, you're like, the bunkers thing is that like it's nearly impossible to take out with HE grenades, right? It would just cost so many resources and would take so long. The only way you can really take that out is with mortars, maybe. It's still in the pain in the ass, and then artillery. And those things are big fucking targets, so it's easy to hit with artillery. Randoms can hit that shit with artillery, especially if you get up behind it and shit. So it's really good for early game. Well, more mid game because you have to get the refined mats first. But once you get late game and you get artillery rolling, smoothly, they're not so big of a deal like any other defense. But this other thing, you can't kill it with artillery unless you have people at the front. You have to have people engaging it from the front in order to kill it in any other traditional way. So I don't think we're going to see it being used really at all until late game. Maybe someone who doesn't know what they're doing might use it like in the first hour or two because it's cool, but other than that,
Well, and that's kind of important to think about, is thinking about this comparing to a bunker. A bunker has really really good defenses, and it's built into a wall. It allows you to shoot out of it and stuff like that. It gives you height for spotting, but it's complex in building. It takes up a lot of space, if you really want to use a lot of them. And it's expensive. It's really expensive. Comparing that to this thing that we can now have relative safety, you could build walls out of these per se, and be much better off than say a bunker, depending on the situation. It almost makes the bunker a little bit less useful. Right now it's a tier 3 fortress wall meta plus the bunker for defensive positions around your base. But with these things, you could put these down, anywhere, a bunch of them, and really defend an area rather decently. I'm still torn on how you have to take these out. We do know it's currently on the dev branch 7 HE grenades. Was it Tiberius?
It was 7 HE grenades to take out a tunnel. Yeah.
Oh, the tunnel. That's right. So we didn't actually get the chance to test this. And actually, that's a good point. Is the tunnel networks? Those are on the dev branch right now.
I mean, that's probably the biggest change to the game since the fucking open world, honestly, is the tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that is very peculiar in terms of the tunnels, the fact that, like, if you don't, it's about a 40-meter range when you put them down. So, like, anywhere in a radius of 40 meters, you're able to put, like, a defensive network down and build. So they're going to be very key points that you want to put, like, close to your defenses, but kind of behind. But with that being said, like, even if you destroy the tunnels, the defenses remain active for, I'm not sure if it's a timer or if it's an ammo count. And I was theorizing with a couple of the guys that were on in the dev branch earlier about maybe it ties into ammo counts. So you need to take supplies to the tunnel networks. But I mean, that could be completely off basis. But we had guys roll up, like, I can't remember who it was, but they had showed up and the wardens just rolled up and no tunnel network anywhere. We had already built the bunker, destroyed the tunnel network, and it started firing on them. And it was pretty sustained fire. Like, it wasn't like a couple shots and then it stopped. It kept going. And then the oh god, what was it? The sunken pillbox started to rise up whenever they run around the corner. So I mean, it's not like they deactivate instantly. Otherwise, destroying a tunnel network would be like a viable option for an RD team.
And the tunnel network really seems to only do a couple things. Right now it only it only expands the distance that you can build your defenses, or really limits it without having a tunnel network.
Mainly, yeah.
Yeah, that's a primary function right now. There is no supply option to it, and I'm curious if they're even ever going to think about giving it some type of supplies required by your town halls, or the town network has to be connected to your stockpiles. If that is the case, though, these things are much easier to counter than literally anything right now. I mean, it was only 7 HE grenades to take one of these out. That's like 3 or 4 mortar hits, and then you've deactivated whatever defenses are within 40 meters of it. I think the tunnel networks are going to have to be either buffed a little bit in that regards. Like, they're way too easy to destroy.
It might be easier if you surround them with walls. I think it's going to be very difficult to get a mortar to slide in between some walls that you place really close together and stuff like that.
Mortars do drop down directly from above, though. Mortars, do? Yeah. So artillery, for instance, they do seem to have an arc, but we did some testing in the past where if you sandwich a bunch of walls together, and I mean super close, and we did this test with blueprints actually, because if you take any bit of damage, a blueprint will go away. And we sandwich it together, and a mortar drop on the very top of it does actually only damage that one part. And you can drop a mortar in between like tier 2 walls and a fence in the middle. You can drop a mortar pretty easily.
That's
within
true.
that.
Yeah. I think so. That does mean especially with the mortar buff, it's not going to be like super duper easy, but it's going to be possible, and it's going to happen a lot for mortars to snipe out tunnel networks.
Mhm.
But don't forget, mortars are now going to be Tech 3, so that's going to take a while to happen.
that's a good
Rip
point.
fucking mortars, dude.
Yeah. The tunnel networks, though, they're an extra 100 materials that you now have to build in order to get your defenses up.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your thought, because I had.
No, I
something
mean,
else to say on that.
it's added cost, and it is gonna help slow things down. I do like this. This basically eliminates the need for the world conquest magical. What was it the magical time limit?
Thing.
Yeah.
Oh, the 2-hour thing.
Yeah, or the expanding radius around your towns. This basically eliminates the need for that big time. Really, the meta for these things, at least in my opinion, is going to be redundancy. You know, if I know that this particular area is really important, I'm going to overlap these things like no other. And actually, I'll probably drop one next to every watchtower that I can do, because those have a decent radius by themselves. So I'll probably drop one of these next to every single watchtower. Done. But along with that is redundancy. If you take one of these out, if they do start to deactivate the actual defenses, you're going to need to have redundancy in place for the meta. But as it is now on the dev branch, it seemed like the defenses were fully functional, even without that. So you just couldn't build
sure
more.
if they don't fix that, or if they don't add something like that now, they'll probably do it later, though.
That's true.
Yeah. So like what tunnel networks kind of remind me, which I'd love to see more of, and it really depends on how far they want to take certain areas of the game. Tunnel networks is kind of like the first real taste a lot of us are going to have of basically like infrastructure and development and stuff like that. Because right now, the only development that you do is you build buildings. You build defenses right now, and you build production buildings. Up until recently, production buildings couldn't even be destroyed, and even less recently than that, they always started built. So now you have to build stuff all over the place if you want that built. But now, like, period, if you want to get anything done, you need to have infrastructure. You need to plan ahead. It's going to take some time. You can't run up in the front with some build mats and drop down a foxhole and just kind of sort of screw around like that. We've kind of had infrastructure with watchtowers before. That's been a thing that a lot of Logi players I know have been very keen on doing, is making sure all of their Logi routes had watchtowers on them so they could keep an eye out for guerrillas and stuff like that. But with tunnel networks, the game can't progress unless your tunnel network infrastructure is fortified. And I think this might open us up for all sorts of other really interesting things, like maybe other sorts of infrastructure things, like, I don't know, telephone poles or radio networks and stuff like that. And you can start linking different systems together. And maybe, I don't know, there's a development score some towns could have that would unlock certain features or special support buildings and stuff like that. It's something really, really cool. And yeah, of course, it slows everything down.
But that's the point. The game isn't. The wars aren't supposed to be really fast. They're supposed to be drawn out.
It definitely makes rushing like a lot harder. In order to rush effectively now, you need to rush up somewhere with the build mats, not only to build your defenses, but also to build a town hall and all the tunnel networks between that town hall and where you want to rush to. So,
and as well as actual other players that have weapons to guard you or vehicles and stuff. So you can't just do it by yourself.
Ironically, the 2-hour restriction that they've had that's been kind of magical is basically unchanged, except now it's enforced with tunnel networks that spread outwards from your town halls naturally over time.
Well, and then that 2-hour limit, actually, from the experience that we saw on the World Conquest, I think it was Weathered Expanse, the first war that it was out. It didn't seem to really matter that 2-hour difference. What you saw was, I think it was 82 DK from what I heard. just rushed Foxcatcher just as men, just as a bunch of dudes, and just camped the living hell out of it until they were able to finally build there or capture that town hall.
Yeah, that's what they did. They just streamed down there and they held it a lot more effectively.
Bless you.
But on the opposite side of that, we were located in Vulpine, and we were building defenses on that border that led into Foxcatcher. And because we didn't have to worry about like the first weekly war, we had people like sneak in within the first half an hour. And we had to worry about wardens on the server. With that 2-hour limit that was on the server, keeping people from coming over, and it tied in with the building at the same time because you had people that were focusing entirely on, I think it was our home region. We didn't have to worry about that because we had all of the town halls already. It was something along that line where we were able to build anywhere on like the home map.
Right.
And that added like it was really logi friendly in that regards. Because the second that the borders opened up, I think we had like one warden come over through the Foxcatcher entrance, and he was like, "All right, I'm leaving," because like by that point we had like proper defenses, and it was actually like it wasn't feasible for them to push from that spot.
It was a massive stress reducer, I tell you. It really was. I do get that those type of arbitrary things shouldn't be necessary. But it was nice. Now I think this is a good step in the right direction with the tunnel networks in removing the magic from the need of slowing the game down. I'm still a firm believer World Conquest, if they open that up to a larger amount of real estate, and I'm saying the 6 map real estate, that it would no longer be necessary for that magic. I also believe that you should start from your home region. You should have to log in and walk across from your home region. It currently has no. I'm trying to think of the words here. There's no distance to it. You just kind of spawn there, and there's no feeling of advancement, right? Where you advance naturally along the lines until you meet in battle. And the tunnel networks do give you that sense of advancement within a region, but as far as world conquest goes, there's nothing to really do anything about that. Why should I be able to spawn in the furthest, closest region to my enemy? Shouldn't I have to get there the good old fashioned way? Walk across,
or take a truck from your home region.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
So the 2x2 world conquest seems a little limiting in that regards, but the 2x3 would be really, really good.
Just imagine a 3x3 once they add more maps. That'd be a lot
the
more
more the better
interesting.
at this point, assuming you have the players to support it.
Well, and that's the thing is right now it's a player limitation. Once we get a lot more players, and I mean a lot more players, a lot of the issues of the game are gonna slowly fade away. You've got the neutral unbalance, but really that's just that player swing won't matter. The whole defending your home region for the first 2 hours thing wouldn't matter. You'd have 60 people, at your will, ready to go if they had to walk in, so you'd be able to respond, patrol, and so on, instead of it being 13 people on your home region because everyone else is off on the front line, and then a whole bunch of guys walk in and just start to shoot you and troll you. It really goes a long way just having bodies to throw around. But there is no logical progression going from A to B. It's all, hey, I just ended up in B now and I'm fighting. So the tunnels are a good step in that direction, though, I do say.
I'm a little bit worried, I guess, about the strain on Logi, but it's only really a strain if you expect them to get done what they have up until now in the same time period,
Yes.
It's because you can't up in the past, we've been like, okay, it's the beginning of the game. We're going to choose this important crossroad. We're going to take it. We're going to fortify it. Logi's going to ship us in BMATs, and we're going to push out from here. We can't do that anymore. Not with this system. It's going to take time to get the town halls up, to get the tunnel networks out. You've got to choose. Do you make, a tunnel network from a rear town hall that's safer to get, or do you rush a town, build the town hall there, and then make the tunnel network? All of these things add up to everything being much slower and having to put a lot more thought into things, and generally just making it harder for people to rush, which is really what should have happened, in general.
Well, and it kind of extending into that, we now have a whole new resource that we have to worry about.
Oh, goodness.
In the sense
we haven't even started talking about.
We haven't
sulfur,
talked about sulfur.
Right, the other huge
we got to talk about it
change
now.
to the
sulfur. I mean, it's one hell of a change. It really is. You've got the added time involved. The sulfur nodes also drop down in their quantity. They get depleted over time, as with the kind of tanks, but they do come back. But now you have cost and time and complexity into logistics. So you've got your you have your explosives that have to go into your RPGs, your mortars. I'm assuming the satchel charges. Everything's going to have this extra material and resource that have to go into it, and then the time and care into getting this resource and protecting it. I don't know. What do you guys think about sulfur?
Shit. Someone made a really good pun about that when they announced it, and I forgot it. Damn it. Oh, yeah. Commend your Logi players or you will sulfur.
Oh, that was me.
Gross.
That was
gross.
Yeah.
No. I plugged our own stream while I'm on it. I feel so disgusting. Jesus.
That's great,
that's
though.
good.
That's a pretty
That's
good.
good.
Fun.
A lot of people talk about the strain on Logi and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, there's some merit to that because Logi is under a strain right now, even with the Tech 2 sledgehammers, which was such an amazing, beautiful super weapon when they first came in. I haven't had enough time to play around with them to really say for sure, but what I hope is going to happen is that you're basically going to make sulfur runs, assuming it takes, I don't know, a half hour to replenish. You have a Logi guy who runs around the map, just like they would in the past have been mining scrap for a while. They would just be rotating between sulfur piles to get those that sulfur. And then, of course, they transport it they just plug it into the rest of the resource chain like they have in the past, which is definitely extra complexity and is therefore definitely a strain. I just don't think it's going to be too bad, hopefully.
I've been kind of going with the way that it adds complexity, which Logi is very monotonous. It's the same shit, different day. It's going to be something extra to do, plain and simple, and I like that. Now I'm no longer going to have everyone sitting on the same scrap node or the same tank or building the same thing. Now you have more to do.
As a physical thing, really quick,
Yeah.
I'm on the dev branch right now, and I was just collecting sulfur, and I'm sure that the spawns are random, but the spawn I got, they didn't replenish. None of it replenished by the time I was done mining. I went back into town and converted it all, and then walked over to the workshop, and I was like, I'm going to make some artillery shells. I didn't even get enough from one node, that entire scrap area being taken apart. It was there was nothing left. I couldn't mine anymore. Didn't even get enough to make arty shells.
How much did you get total from that node?
I think I got 183 refined complete.
Wait,
So-
that wasn't
so
enough
that's-
for 3 months?
That's
I feel like
25% loss.
that's on purpose, though. I feel like it would be on purpose.
That seems. I remember someone saying that it costs less than that for artillery shells, but I might be wrong.
No, it's 200 for artillery shells. It's 120 for howitzer shells.
That's right.
Is that
might
per
be a
crate or per order? You know what I mean?
Just FYI, Markfoot just confirmed that there won't be that magical build limitation this next war. He said that in the French a little while ago.
Nice. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Really quick, I just built an artillery gun at Woodbine. If anybody wants to come online and help me test it out on sunken pillboxes.
Sure.
Live myth busting right here.
Going
Yeah,
on.
right now. Let's go. Somebody who's got that
Um,
tied right to
So
their computer.
assuming that that's real, that on one hand, that's a big deal. On the other hand, it's not quite so big of a deal. I'm more interested, honestly, in mortars at the moment because depending on how much tech you need for Tech 3, it will cost. Mortars are going to see a lot more use overall than artillery because they're just a little bit longer range right now, and because they cost less explosives, they're going to be more accessible sooner to the vast majority of people who are in smaller groups and stuff like that. I also think that explosive materials are probably going to be stockpiled, at least by large coalitions and stuff. They're going to be stockpiled specifically for artillery shells far in advance of actually unlocking artillery, which hasn't
Give
really
us
been
a
needed for anything
warehouse.
in the past, which is cool.
yes, warehouses.
We want warehouses. That's what we want.
And
When we want it now.
You should see some of the warehouses we've made just out of chain link fences and barracks, like drive-through logic depots. It's incredible.
Well, you saw Tuatha. We had the 15 barracks
marked off with roads.
Yep, with numbers in the sandbags. Yeah, each and every one of those got full of BMATs and RMATs. Every single one.
Now, here's another big thing that I want to talk about when it comes to something like this that's in such low supply. How much of that is a good thing? Large groups getting all the sulfur and stockpiling it, sure, that's going to be great for artillery in the future, but what if that leaves the other 80% of the team with almost no sulfur and therefore almost no explosives for the rest of the game?
I feel like that's an issue that
Conquest where it'd be almost impossible for stuff to happen, but
I feel like that's an issue that happens now, even with BMATs and refined mats, because you have a few select people that you put on, like you get BLD or you get Pug in there. You're like, go collect some components. You're like, you got 3 or 4 people hitting that scrap node, hitting that tank. You have a lot of refined material coming your way, but that's stuff that your team doesn't have access to. I mean, granted, there's a place that stuff is going, but at the same time, it's really difficult to justify saying that, oh well, big coalition shouldn't be able to just mine all of that.
Well,
I mean,
I think it might be more efficiently used by bigger coalitions, but the real problem is that RMATs are more they're not as essential as sulfur right now, because sulfur you need constantly, and you need it for the ability to really do anything with any kind of speed, because you need it for satchels, mortars, artillery, and stuff like that. RMATs, you only really need that in bursts, I find, when you want to start building up fortifications or when you want to start making half tracks. And then after you do that, you're done. You're going to need sulfur all game, all the time. You are never going to say, oh, shit, I found some RMATs in a crate by the side of the road. What do I do with this now? You're never going to be in that situation. So for something to be so much more vital to the survival of an army and at the same time a lot more difficult to get and therefore easier to control, I think it might be a problem that we haven't seen really before. There's been people before saying like, this group is hogging the armories too much. That was definitely a problem before the new factory system and, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's going to be a lot more tangible and it might happen a lot more often now. But it's one of those things that we're really just going to have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, and an interesting point with the basic materials thought is right now everyone tends to hoard that, but it's kind of a keep what you kill type of mentality. You put the work into it, you're going to make use of it. There are some players out there who will sit there and fill boxes and boxes of scrap and materials. I know, like Prince, for instance, I've seen 6 to 8 boxes completely full of just scrap, ready to go, just for anyone to just walk up and take it as they need it.
And God bless their souls.
Yes, absolutely. Commend those people at all times.
Yeah, no, those are the best.
But
I do want to make a note really quick. I just checked the sulfur notes, and they still weren't replenished. So it's been probably a good 15 minutes since I mined that.
And you still haven't. That's worth talking
and they haven't
about, actually.
Yeah, they haven't spawned back yet. I mean, I was able to drive down to Enduring from after collecting them, refine them, pick up a couple things at the town, and then drive down to Woodbine and make a artillery, and then drive back, and it still wasn't spawned back.
That's worth noting as far as the time goes. Yeah, it actually adds importance if they do keep that type of um it would be interesting if that requires you to have multiple sulfur nodes in order to effectively use them. You know, you're going to not just have one Logi guy sitting on each, you're going to be going between the two to get enough, which does add a lot more importance to holding those points. And that's
And
if they stick with the
you're gonna
current
get it
spawn rate.
constantly again too. That's
Yeah.
something that's becoming more clear now. Is like whenever you need RMATs, it's like, oh, let's go out and mine RMATs for 30 minutes so we can get enough. But now you're always going to need sulfur. You're always going to have to maximize those nodes.
And that's something that, you know, players are going to have to rotate on the
And I mean,
work you
and that
put
whole
in.
thing may be on purpose. They may purposely slow down the spawn rate of sulfur so you can't spam explosives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because for a while there, you used to be able to just pop out as many mortar shells as you possibly could.
I think that's
And
definitely their eventual intention.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
no,
but
it slows down the game quite effectively.
think about the most common explosive, though. I mean, the most versatile, and that's going to be grenades, HE grenades. HE grenades do not require sulfur. And I had talked to Markford about this as soon as the sulfur was like put up. He spent like an entire night. It was like midnight his time when he put up that dev blog. But almost immediately I recognized, hey, HE grenades are very important, and if you get backed into a corner where you no longer have the ability to get sulfur, you will have effectively lost the game. It's done. You know, it's going to be a slow kill, but you'll be done. You cannot effectively combat the enemy defenses, and that's again if they have the defenses up to that point with the new tunnel networks. But if you're backed into a corner like that, how do you come back? How do you combat that? It's such a huge swing in the balance of the game. You know, suddenly you're completely screwed. And he said, well, the HE grenades are basically the entry level explosive, and they will not require sulfur. So I think HEs are going to be relied upon a lot more, even for the simple stuff, that you might typically use satchels. We know that it's like it used to be 60 to 80 HE grenades for a town hall, whereas it's like 30 mortars for a town hall. Getting those mortars is going to take forever, so we might start to see HE spam, or a lot more reliability on actually getting up to the town hall to use a satchel on it. But it is kind of a thing that we're going to see a lot more HE grenades being used and spammed by
And that's a good thing. So that because,
They're
right
kinda just
now they are
hard,
used
know?
often, but they aren't used as often.
I'm
I would
surprised that
say.
I don't see more people using smoke grenades as well. Because smoke grenades, you have one guy run up with smoke grenades, and you have the rest of them carry AT grenades.
You have seen an
HE,
increase
sorry,
in
yeah.
that.
I
You could
usually
just
see people with smoke grenades, and then they either throw them, and then like somebody else or myself who will have HE grenades and will throw
Mhm.
grenades over there.
Yeah.
But I'm usually one of the people who usually
Well,
takes
no,
smoke
yeah,
out.
there's two reasons why people
I mean,
don't
it's not
use
like
HE and smoke as much as they ideally would. You know, the first thing is they both weigh a lot more than they used to. Used to, when you could hold 16
Yes.
grenades, that was 4 foxholes you were carrying around in your pocket. And so a squad of guys, you multiply however many guys you have by 4, that's how many foxholes you can kill.
Mhm.
Nowadays, you can only fit 4 HE grenades max in your
Yeah.
backpack, and then maybe a smoke grenade.
Mhm.
So if you do all that, you're going to be way down to hell. That's 1 foxhole per guy. So not only is it much harder to actually get those foxhole kills, but you have to do it with a whole bunch more people, and you have to resupply constantly now
Mhm.
because it's so much more difficult for people to carry all that stuff up there. It's so easy for you to get flanked, because you run up and there's a foxhole you didn't see. Somebody's just straight up an idiot and doesn't know what they're doing and walks in front of the smoke and dies. There's just so many ways it can go wrong, and you don't have as much reach as you used to. Just a squad loaded down with grenades and stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just more slowing down the play, which is the eventual goal.
Hmm. Well, and smoke grenades, a lot of people still don't realize the tactics involved and actually how to use them. You have to wait for the canister to disappear before you can run up to it. Otherwise, you're going to get shot right away. That basically allows for the smoke to disperse, but they don't last that long. I've been in a few situations where you run up and you're like trying to get something done and your smoke is done, or it dissipates just enough for something to shoot you. You really have to have someone, timing it right and just to keep you smoked down, so you can do what you need to do. If you're trying to sneak into a town hall and there's stuff around you, I know Touch My Toes and I did that once, where I just threw a smoke grenade in a line, and he was able to walk through that smoke all the way to the town hall, walking against multiple garrisons, multiple foxholes, and take out the town hall with satchels, just because you had
I
one
remember
guy
that.
dedicated to just smoke. Yeah, you were there. But it's one of those things that you have to do right. And smoke grenades, until now, didn't have that much of a purpose or that much of a use, other than throwing it at a bridge and running across with a shotgun.
That actually
But
might be the second reason why smokes aren't used as much as we'd like them to be. Because if the foxhole has a player in it, it's very easy for the player to shoot you through the smoke because they can just aim through the smoke and see where the red line is and shoot you. So
yeah.
smoke doesn't work as well as we'd like it to on experienced players, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, and then it's the counter to that is to spread your smoke around. Drop a smoke to the left, drop a smoke to the right, drop a smoke in the middle, and where are you coming from? That's kind of the counter to that, but it's still
That's
one of
really
those things.
expensive, though.
It
Yeah.
is. It's
That's
expensive.
really expensive, especially
If
for
you're
one
skilled
emplacement.
enough,
It adds
you can
weight.
still maybe kill him, especially once you throw the HE grenade. You know where he's coming from, but you've got seconds to react and kill the guy before you're dead too. So it's a very cutthroat situation any way you look at it at that point.
You really have to use it when they're not expecting it.
Yeah.
That's been my good use of it.
It's difficult to use HEs and smokes against a defended line of foxes
Yeah.
and shit, I guess.
So yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see, especially with the sulfur cost. We'll have to wait and see and for that to come down.
Ended up being a good thing we went back to the one map, I guess, because of how far-reaching and potentially disastrous or beneficial these changes could be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing is we're now going to see these in the old school format. I really, really, really want to play some more World Conquest. Don't get me wrong, but it is probably
same.
still a
Pretty
good
sure we
thing.
all do.
What else was the other major thing that you saw on the dev branch? Yeah, it's going to be the new player model.
Oh,
Yep.
It's finally coming. There are some
The
quirks.
animations as well.
The animation, it feels right.
I feel like Tom Cruise in every single movie he's ever been in. Just
Just like the way you hold the pistol.
Well, no,
Oh,
just by the
that
way you
is-
run. You can't. It's the Tom Cruise run.
the Tom Cruise run. Yeah, I think Casper came up to me and spammed James Bond as he moved around. Yeah, the new player models are definitely nice. I think we all saw people talking about the wrinkly face and stuff like that.
just so unexpected.
Yeah, I expected a middle-aged man or like a
Or
younger
just something so much
guy.
like low res, like the last one.
Mm-hmm. There are some still issues with it that Markfoot pointed out that the animations and are still being worked on. So there's still a little bit of work to be done, but I'm pleased with what I saw so far.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like the face, like obviously like the face is not what we expected, but it's not like you're gonna see that, and like everything else about the models themselves are like
Mhm.
great. The only things that I could think I or don't like agree with is I can agree with this as well. The brightness of the warden uniform seems they stick out a little too much. The blue should be a little darker.
I didn't really
I
get a
think it
chance
looks
to look
bright
at
and
that,
cheery, but yes, also bad for content.
but- bright and cheery.
Yeah.
Looks happy to see you.
Yeah.
But-
And I'm not used to seeing the colonial outfit being so dark. It was actually a shock for a moment.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, it did feel dark, especially when you get into the night. It was harder to see. Now I'm one of those players that likes to play on low, even though I could play on ultra all day. But it just trying to go through the tall grass and the dark and stuff is already a little bit insane. So drop your graphics on low, you don't have to see that. But um, now it's even darker. So I'll probably be seeing a lot more team killing from accidental stuff. I do gotta
And
point out that
oh, sorry,
uh,
I'll let you finish.
we don't typically see the new character model from the front or anything like that until we do the free roam stuff. But seeing it in that new perspective is kind of interesting for literally anything in the game. But you typically see it from the top back. And really the player model right now has the kind of the cloak or the cape draping off his shoulders. I think that really lends a lot to the darkness of the feel. We also have to keep in mind that there's going to be multiple different outfits coming.
Oh yeah.
Can't wait to try them all on. Can't wait.
Oh,
Yeah.
one thing that I wanted to bring up, like, uh, I feel like the reason why the colonial outfit seems to blend in more and why the warden one seems to like stick out a bit more is that we already know, the devs have already pointed out when they first showed us the concept art for the models, is that the wardens are more traditional and the colonials are like practical and stuff. So I assumed that why the warden uniform is this like light blue is because like it's their tradition. Like that's something that's stuck with them for a long time and they're not just about to like change it. But the
It is a very smart color of blue.
but
Very
the
pretty.
but the colonials, they're I guess it's like they know the type of environment that they're going to be fighting in, and they don't really care about looking all flashy and everything. They just want to be able to blend in enough so then they don't get shot by their enemies.
Hmm. Well, and that's actually an interesting point is with the warden being much more conventional. If we think back to history, you had the redcoats, the British going into United States, or well, not yet United States, but they had the conventional warfare, the conventional tactics. Line up in a line and get shot. Meanwhile, we were all running around guerrilla warfare. You didn't know who was a soldier because he was just wearing his general day-to-day clothes.
Yeah.
It was practical. They didn't really have very many uniforms. They did have uniforms eventually, but you had a lot of militias out there that were just ragtag, whatever they happened to have on, and they would hide in the trees and stuff. But the redcoats, that red stuck out just so much, and that is a good point. Even going back to the old days where you had the fancy hats that are 2 feet tall, the Prussian army and so on. The warden do feel very traditional in what they do. Keep in mind the colonials have had
Especially
to.
their helmet.
Yeah, yeah. The colonials are well, they're seen as the invaders, but they're trying to push in with the land. They were at a disadvantage in their life, so they basically were forced to make more, useful tools, including the clothes you wear. But that's a good point.
What? Anything else come that was new?
The Endless Shore map change.
Oh, yeah.
Not as drastic as the last time, but certainly interesting.
They got rid of the well bridge.
I thought that was nice.
I just noticed that. I think the well bridge was probably my single biggest complaint ever. Well, no, I do complain a lot, but it was a big complaint. That bridge did really change the feel of the game. The addition of that muddy, shallow water over at Kelpie's Main is interesting. You got a slow walk through it. I think someone pointed out that you can drive through it right now as well. I think I saw that on the diagram somewhere.
Amphibious half tracks.
Yes.
Yes.
But that's kind of cool. I do like seeing that bridge gone. I don't think there were any other major changes to the map other than that. There's the ninja passage up in Foxtrot 1, way up there.
There's a new footbridge between the well and Brackish.
Oh, well, and Brack. Oh,
Just a footbridge, though.
I didn't even notice that. It is blended in with the line, kind of like the Alpha 6 Ninja Bridge. But that's a good point. That helps. I think that helps. Being able, if you could walk across that to get into Brackish, even the spot, around. It kind of takes the pressure off of Saltbrook.
I don't know actually if it starts built.
That's a good point. Well, typically they don't start built the footbridges, but it'd be good thing to see what the state is.
I mean, since we've already talked about tanks and then like the two biggest earth-shattering changes to the meta since like forever, is there really anything else to talk about?
I think we're basically done here. I mean,
unless we wanted to go over some suggestions that we've heard.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
We've had some. We're not having technical difficulties. What did I click? There's some super good suggestions out there.
So, are we able to destroy the sunken bunkers if they're not extended?
Yes.
They say it's extremely difficult. So
okay, because we put 4 shells of an arty gun into one right now.
Yeah.
Four of those shells have been like direct hits.
Wow.
You should have another shell left, right?
Let me fire it. Let me see.
Yeah, they say it should be
Watch out, guys.
very impractical to try and take one out when it's sunken. So I would expect, maybe a dozen arty shells.
Well,
it already takes.
Yeah, that's 5 right there.
Well, a dozen.
I got more.
That's half a crate of, or that's almost a crate of arty shells, and you can't even get enough sulfur for that.
It's directly designed to counter artillery, so it would make sense if it's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and that's the thing is it slows down the arty and gives you ability of actually countering the arty. To deploy your own arty or howitzer or be able to run up to it.
There is something that everyone should consider though. You can't tell half tracks to fuck off with those like you can with pillboxes and vehicle turrets, of course. Because half tracks could just run around them real quick. The half tracks are just barely fast enough to run through them before they can really start firing.
Does anyone else really want to see what happens if you just park a half track on top of it?
Oh my god! How have we not tried that yet?
I just thought of it. It's just wow. We can
on top of the sunken bunker.
Yeah.
Yes, and then have someone.
Just park
no, they take a lot. They take a lot. There was I think it was. One of the devs, I can't remember which one, was in the middle of Enduring Post, and somebody rolled up with a half track and parked it, and he stood on the opposite side, and it laid into it like anything else.
No, we mean like park it
literally
on top of, and
literally
then make it
on
pop
top.
up and see what happens.
I don't know if you can get it on top of it.
Why not?
I know you can't climb on it. So I don't know.
It's possible that you just can't drive on it.
Yeah.
But you can drive on top of a foxhole.
Yeah, if you're.
I'm thinking, a little bit of
half-track parkour skills are good enough.
Half-track parkour.
I mean, maybe you could see if you could get a truck stuck on it. I mean, because when you back up onto a fence, I mean, I think we'll talk that game. So, yeah, if you guys want to fire some more shells at this, yeah.
Yeah, you mark all the sunken pillboxes you've built by parking motorcycles on top of them.
Be clear that it was like 30 minutes ago that they said that they're going to get an artillery up to test this, right? And 30 minutes later, and they're still firing rounds at it. That's pretty big. So what kind of suggestions have we been seeing that you guys wanted to bring up? Anything?
Well, I wanted to bring up the, I guess, well, no, maybe, but like urban region.
Oh, sure.
Because I talked about it like a tiny bit last stream, but we didn't really go into depth about like our opinions on it.
Yeah. So, what was the idea of just having a region that's basically a city, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna use the same example I did for how it would look like I did last stream, but like the Company of Heroes 2 Berlin map. If you guys know how it looks, it's not really like a really huge, dense city, but it's big enough. It's like enough for you to know that you're like in a city, but it's just dense enough, but it's not dense. You,
Yeah, there's
you know
lots of
what I
like
mean?
really big open plazas and parks and stuff like that.
But there's also like streets that are kind of crowded, or like that feel a little like, I guess, claustrophobic.
Hmm.
But and my
Yeah,
idea
and
was
I
that
think
the city wouldn't take up the entire map. There would still be small villages on the outside and maybe like some farmland as well.
Hmm. That yeah. Um, it'd be kind of interesting to think about these objectives not in the sense of towns. You know,
But
capturable
like just
points.
locations in general, just like
Yeah.
capture the plaza,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah, your HQ on that side of the area. That was a pretty common thing to have to do in like World War One, and well before is you'd have your HQ on the other side of the massive metropolitan area. But yeah, I was thinking, that tight, close feel of like Venice or Paris, where you got these narrow roads and everything. Like a lot of games that you see, like World of Tanks and all those other tank games out there. Those types of feeling of places where maneuverability is lowered, especially when you get tanks into the mix. That'd be really cool. But imagine like having like the road that you're traveling down is surrounded by garrisons, or there being like a garrison every so often that you could build up. Yeah, I do think that'd be kind of cool. And then being able to walk out towards the edge of the map and maneuver around a little bit easier.
I wish
Um,
I wish you guys had been able to see that. That was beautiful.
well, what'd you do? What did you
I think
do?
we've dropped close to how many
Yeah.
shells? Like 11 shells into this thing,
Yeah, and
and
then
it still
somebody
hasn't.
died right now, and
Yeah.
everybody in the chat
I
was
think
just saying
Hengel
F.
adjusted the distance on the Artigun, and it landed
Mhm.
right on one of the 82 DK guys.
Rip, Ripper.
Uh,
Man, if I was in that game right now, totally be like F's in chat to.
Oh no,
Yeah, that's what we did.
Press
everybody
F
did
to
their
pay
F's and chats.
respects.
Yeah.
They got that right.
I
Everybody
actually
in the
just
stream
saw
chat,
a little
everybody in the
suggestion that would be
stream
In the
chat,
stream
interesting.
press F.
chat, press F, pay respects.
If we must.
Pay your respects.
Yeah, no, that's suggestions. God, what tangents have you
I
done?
saw one that's actually it's not like earth shattering in its implementation, but it might have some pretty interesting consequences. Let's see. Let me pull
Let's
it back
hear
up.
it.
Where the hell did it go?
You dig for that. You dig
Okay.
for that.
Okay, here it is. Okay, so Moxie actually came up with it.
Hey.
It's simple. On World Conquest, hide the F1 scoreboard, which effectively would hide, like specifically, I'm pretty sure I know why he suggested this, would hide enemies so that you can't see. You might be able to see how many enemies, when you first enter the World Conquest game, you wouldn't be able to see who's on the other team. So I can't, all the time, you'd pop into a World Conquest of the back lines and you'd press F1 and you see there's 10 Edge members online and it's suddenly everyone's sounding the alarm bells. You don't know what's happening, but it's got to be something bad.
Right. That's actually a good point, because players do get a I don't know, you know what they're good at, right? Or what their
They have a
typical tactics
reputation
are.
of things.
Reputation, that's the word. I mean, that's not going to matter as much or as we get into release and there's hundreds of players to keep track of. But right now, you notice even a clan tag, and it's like, oh crap, these guys are online.
That guy's part of so and so clan. He's
Yeah.
pretty good or something. He better.
Less so
Yeah.
even the clan tags, just knowing that there are enemies on the map and how many of them there are.
Mhm.
Knowing
But-
who
but-
they are, of course, is huge.
But who's to stop someone from just dropping back out and checking? I mean,
Well, that's the thing. If it was hidden entirely, I mean, you'd never know. There could be like 20 wardens sneaking around the map and you would never know. And I honestly think that would be better.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially once you get into having the large player counts, that would be important. I think right now, pre-alpha, you need to have some reason to go online, and that's what seeing players online. long term, though, that does make sense. Where you can just make assumptions that people are going to be online, but which region are they on?
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
think it comes down to knowing. I mean, at this point in time, I feel that everyone here is like, we're part of the community. Like, we know what to expect from certain people. I mean, you get Edge online, you know that they have their certain tactics. You have Pug and 10CCE and BLD. We have our play styles, like the way that we like to do things. And so when you look at the scoreboard and you're like, oh, these guys are online. Like, you know, like how to prepare yourself or how to like kind of
Mhm.
combat that. And it adds like this community element because it goes from just random people playing in a server to being like, oh, hey, we know these guys. We talk to them all the time. And it changes from this kind of like mystery-esque like war simulator to like oh, hey, we like to actually play with these guys. Like they put up a good fight or like we know how they play. And it adds a
That's
dynamic to the game.
It reminds me a lot of, if anyone's played Eve before, local chat in Eve, which is key to any scout's intelligence gathering toolkit when they are running through systems and trying to see who's in the system. Doesn't matter how stealthy your ship is. Doesn't matter if you're a battle fleet or like one guy in a stealth ship. You're going to show up in local chat all the time. You're never not in local chat, right? At least as far as I understand, that might have changed. It's been a long time. But anyway, so like in that same respect, it opens up a larger conversation of ideas about intelligence and intelligence gathering, because that's absolutely true. It's super awesome to know who your enemy is and be able to like tailor your playstyle around them and get familiar with an enemy and all that kind of stuff. But on the other side, it's really not cool when you're Edge and you're trying to build a secret base to take Foundry, and suddenly someone notices that you're all on, the fucking, you're all on there and there's no town halls. Something must be going on. There's probably a middle ground right now when we're on this one map and we're doing the like community wars. I don't think it's that big of a deal to have everyone available on the F1, but for World Conquest, maybe there's, I don't know, the longer you're in a region, the more chance you have to be discovered and you're put in like a known enemies list or something. Or like maybe if you stay in watchtower range for too long, it'll say like a warden soldier on the F1 list. And if you stay in the watchtower zone even longer than that, or some kind of timer adds up, it'll name you, and then it'll put your clan tag on if you stay even longer than that.
Actually, yeah, it's a pretty good system. Like, not that it'll show who you are to the rest of the team, but or like watchtowers they could do that. But if another player on the opposite team finds you, they'll be the only person that knows that you're there, and it'll only show for them that you're like in the F1 menu.
Yeah, I was
think there's
gonna
a whole bunch of
suggest
different
that,
ways you could implement something like that.
It shows for the entire team, but like a short amount of time. I don't know if it would be possible to implement something like that.
Well, last seen so many minutes ago or something like that.
But not like,
Um,
but not for the whole team. If you're the only one, or like if two of you, there's like two of you or like four of you that see like one or two enemy soldiers, and you see their name tag, their name tag, then you're the only people who are going to be able to see that they are on the server in the F1 like player menu.
yeah, but I
Maybe-
mean,
maybe unless you
I
have a
want to be able to
radio or
report
something.
that back. Either having
Yeah,
a
that
radio
you can
in your
like
pocket
do that
or,
too as well.
or something. But
It certainly is raining on someone's butt fuck parade when they get everything ready to go screw someone over in another region, and suddenly one guy who actually pays attention notices they all hop in, right? So I think there's definitely a lot of interesting ideas that people could throw back and forth for different ways to balance it one way or balance it another way.
But here's,
Well, I think-
here's the thing: is to go back on what Tibbers is saying about the community aspect. I do agree. I do very much agree that the community, as of now, is literally why we're here. It's why we're doing this stream. It's why we're playing the game. To take out the community from the game, unless you're only taking out just a certain point or altering how it interacts, that's one thing. But removing the aspect, if you only had local chat, I wouldn't be able to have playful banter back and forth with the wardens. I wouldn't be able to chat back and forth, go, haha, that was awesome. Did you see that?
Yeah, we
oh,
wouldn't
man,
be
you
able
got
to
me.
tell each other dank memes. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
how could I share my dank memes?
Play pop music over my dying corpse.
But I mean, the community is huge right now. I mean, huge in the sense that it's extremely important.
Yeah.
That could change, absolutely.
And
But
to go really quick, to go back on what Duke was saying about, say, like Edge starts to mount an offensive on a map and they've just transferred over, and somebody's just like, oh, hey, by the way, Edge is here. I mean, depending on the type of game style, if it's world conquest, like, yeah, there's certain points that they need to come in on, and they can get in to the map, but they could probably circumvent. So they'll probably have a plan in place to circumvent any kind of defensive structure that's there before they make an offensive push. But we don't know where they are. Yes, they're on the server, but the maps are so large that you won't be able to tell where they're coming in from, because they could be anywhere. And unless you're in open communication with people on other maps that are like, well, we saw Edge on this map, they're coming in from this direction, they'll just be there. So at that point, you got 10 to 15 people running around, and you're like, we don't know where they are. They could be anywhere.
Yeah,
And
and that like there's situations where that has actually happened, where like there was one point it was on Upper Heartlands, and I think we were taking Upper Barony, and I was going through one of the fields to get to the town, and it was only until like they were barely like disappearing off of my screen that I had seen that I had walked past an enemy, and I was like, wait a second. So I turned around and I was like, hey, wait, that's a guy. So and it's like that can happen. You won't be able to find where they are exactly. They can be like walking right past you, and you'll never
right.
see them.
That's
Well,
true. At the same time, it's like if you know there's a whole bunch of guys on the same team with a clan tag, and they don't control the region, you know there's only a few things that they could be up to. So what we did, even without that knowledge, just regularly, is we had someone with a motorbike driving between all the towns of the factory and driving around all the towns of the factory and building up radio networks. And anywhere that there were conspicuous holes in a radio network, he'd check. It's easier than you might think to track down a group of coordinated players, because there's only so many options a group of coordinated players really have in a map like that. A bunch of random players, yeah, they can be dispersed all over the map, but if you're coordinated, you're going after a factory town and you're trying to take it without anyone noticing, and that's hard to do if there's someone looking for you.
Well, and I mean, to even branch off of this whole idea, if Edge likes to do these cheeky tactics, right?
Or anyone.
Well, then they're going to grow that reputation themselves. Yeah, it's their doing that they have that reputation. It's my doing that BLD does building and logistics. Or
I feel
Tiberius.
as like a speaker towards the community, we should probably refrain from using specific clans. It's like,
well, yes,
there's
but
only a handful.
you're like, wow, these guys are really assholes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say Clan A, which may or may not be known for buttfuckery, oh, so you mean Edge? So clan, which is known for building a whole lot, and so you mean
Casper?
this clan is known for having a fuck ton
Yeah.
of people. Oh, so you mean 82DK? Is that you can just say that they're 82DK?
Right. Well, and that's the thing is right now the community is so small, but when you get a lot of clans, at release,
Again, it's any groups.
But,
I mean, it happened with 82DK too. A few of them were trying to do some stuff, and someone hopped on, saw that they had clan tags, rode around, and sure enough, they found they were halfway into breaching a town and wrecked them.
We used to sit
really
and chat and theorize about what Pug was doing, and more often than not, we were right. Or 501st, all these clans. I mean, they all kind of do their own play style. You play with who you get along with, and you do the actions you like to do. I can just, for some reason, slap scrap all day. So guess where you'll find me, or we'll be doing some cheeky tactics. But again, these reputations are built by the clans, by what they're good at. It's no different than having an elite combat group in in like the World War. In World War II, you'd have combat groups that were more known for getting into towns and securing them real fast. And your intelligence would say, hey, we know that this combat group is coming in, and they're part of the Wehrmacht or something, and we know we have to counter that. We know that they'll be securing this. We have to push in. with more guys, or we have to secure this bridgehead. That was a valid tactic. It's no different
The thing
than
is, though,
wearing
should
your
they
patch.
get that intel for free, or should they have to work for it? If you find out that there are enemy players being coordinated and they're part of a clan, and you get that through like intel gathering, that's incredible, and you should be rewarded for that by fucking up their plans because you gathered that intel.
Right.
I just don't think it should be so easy to get that kind of intel.
Right. Well, and that's true. But as far as reputation goes, it's every clan's doing for how they play. Clans could change it up a bit. Pug is decent at that. For instance, you guys don't just do one single thing anymore. You used to do the one single thing a lot, and it was just the variations of this one single thing. But now you're on the front line a lot. You're rolling with combat groups. We've got the random brigades. We're all trying to cooperate together. The play styles of the clans has evolved. BLD, well, there's not all that we can change, but
Make a
really,
combat engineer core easy.
Well, we've more or less become that sometimes. 10 CCE, they were literally combat engineers with the slow push building foxholes, and now they're doing a lot more spec ops. There is a bit of change in the way that clans operate, and this doesn't affect individual players. But it is a lot more for the clans and their playstyles. Now, when you build a reputation for yourself, you should expect to have that reputation be used against you in terms of intel. Now, yes, intel should be worked for or gained in some weird way, but that's a big system to have to implement.
The whole like not showing enemy players on the F1 thing is just like a very, very, very light, like easy thing to do, kind of, sort of, you know what I mean?
But it takes a big chunk out of that community aspect, which is still important to balance.
And like I can see later on, like you were saying about like the different things clans can do. I can see in the future when tanks are added that I guess a good portion of the logistics-based clans will probably turn late game will turn into like tank units when they have like enough resources to just like leave their job as logistics and maybe go and help. Maybe send like 2 tanks over with like
leave
3 of their guys.
Job? What do you mean?
Okay, like half of you
Sulfur together, son.
So it was talked about on the stream like way back at the beginning, but Duke mentioned something about like not being able to like he would frown upon the idea of restricting the amount of tanks that could be on either side of the battlefield at a time, due to the fact that if a team was in a prosperous enough position where they could collect the resources and actually make those items, that it would be like they should be able to do it. You got to think there's only, at this point in time, and probably when the tanks are implemented, 60 people on a team. You have 3-man crews going into these tanks. I mean, 5 of them, that's 15 people. That's a quarter of the team. And that's a lot of people going in tanks.
That's a good point, actually.
That's another really organic restriction. It's not magical, right? You can only there's a build limit of some kind. You literally don't have enough people in your team to field the tanks effectively. That's a perfect example of like a really organic, meaningful restriction that you can counter in some way, or maybe not be able to counter in some way.
That's a good point. I mean, they are going in the right direction with the natural restrictions and the natural flow of the game. The changes like that. I do like to see where that's going, long term especially. And maybe these are just coincidental things that happened. That might not have been intentional. That's going to be a limiting factor, but heck, that's a limiting factor in real life. If you only have so many qualified tank crews to go around, you're going to have to either stop using tanks or get more crews, and then you're taking them from other critical spots. Germany had a big issue with that, especially with their Air Force, for instance, where they were running out of qualified pilots and veteran pilots, and you're no longer having to scrape the bottom of the barrel, and you're going to start doing that once you start running out of people to run your tanks.
Think about all the people that are going to be required to support those tanks, not just to build them, but I mean, surely you're going to need to repair and rearm them constantly. That's a big strain on logistics. In addition to just getting guns and soldier supplies, now you need armats probably to repair them. You need all these special shells.
Sulfur.
Who knows? You might even need you might even need like equipment to repair them, like engine parts, some kind of specialized like intermediate material.
And
no, guys, tanks are made solely out of sulfur.
Solely out of sulfur, sulfur tanks. Nice. Why don't we just
they obscure the friendly troops behind them with smoke, but just from the sulfur coming off the tank.
Just
and
floating salt
They
crystals.
team kill the infantry on accident because of the toxins from it.
Yeah, that should be a mechanic, by the way. You have to wear a gas mask to mine sulfur or you die.
Yeah, someone said that in the
someone
chat.
let you finish, but they took out the bridge between the well and Tuatha. I didn't notice that until now.
Oh yeah,
we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah,
sorry, I have
you're
no
busy
idea why.
blowing up that.
Yeah.
How many rounds did it take actually for that sunken pillbox? I'm still waiting for that.
It's still there.
It's still there. You
We
shot
dropped
11?
probably close to more than 11 shells into it. I want to say close to 16 shells.
16 shells into a sunken pillbox. There you go, people. That's what you're up against.
And then
Only
I think
60
Rogue Tiger
refined
was over
materials for
here
that.
shooting it with a pistol and a rifle, and it still didn't do it.
Did you try making it pop up and then shooting it?
We didn't have any wardens in here to test that out. I mean, probably there were a couple 82 DK guys that were over there shooting them. They destroyed 2 of them. I think it takes 2 to 3 RPGs when it's raised.
Hey, well, I'm gonna go now. So
yeah, I think
nice
I think we're
to be on
wrapping
the
up
stream
here
for today.
anyways.
Yeah.
I actually thought I was gonna have to leave earlier, but oh well.
Yeah, we went much longer, an hour and 30 minutes or so.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's we had a lot to talk about, and we got some good stuff in.
We got through it at a pretty good pace.
Good pace, yeah, actually. And you know, guys, this is number 2, stream number 2, video number 2, podcast number 2, what have you. Let us know what you guys want to see. I know there's still a lot more that I want to do. I want to get in some community artwork. I want to feature some art, maybe. You know, let me know what you want to see.
Maybe next stream we can do that.
Yeah, next stream. We'll have to see. It kind of depends on how much amazing stuff they showed us.
We'll basically become like the roundup, like the second community highlight per week.
Yeah, the community highlights. Yeah, I mean,
we'll take over the job of the devs and their dev stream.
Oh god,
maybe.
No. They get paid to do that stuff, and that's
let HB know that he's welcome on here at any time. In fact, all the devs are welcome, but HB,
any of course, please, that'd be amazing.
But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for coming out on this late Thursday night or whatever time zone you're in. Again, we want to thank the devs for the effort they've been putting in, and really they've been showing us a lot of support, even with the first stream. You know, got mentioned on the community highlights. The devs have been supporting us ever since. Mark threw us the concept art, which was amazing.
Yeah, hopefully he'll give us like little things like that to just showcase you guys when they aren't up, so then we can do it for them, kind of.
Yeah, we'll
not like big things, but just like how like it was just like tank degradation. It wasn't like a huge thing. We already knew that was going to happen.
They didn't feel the need to share during a dev stream. That's all.
Yeah, because they explained it to us. They didn't really need to show us like.
But it was so fun seeing that. Don't get me wrong.
And now we have that new emote or whatever that you made.
Oh yeah,
the little tank commander dude.
Yeah, the little
new tank
the peeking guy. That little guy is so good. All
right,
well, thank you guys so much. I know Tiberius is probably still blowing shit up on the dev stream. If you're on the stream right now, we'll probably migrate that way. I know I will. Lurkers has to go do life things or some bullshit
probably
like
go
that.
to sleep soon, but whatever.
So thank you guys for coming out, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.